The first of our three brief lectures will be concerning hell, and the concluding three concerning heaven. And you'll probably notice as we pursue the themes that there is a kind of balance between aspects in hell and aspects in heaven of an absolutely opposite kind, but corresponding nevertheless. All of you have copies of the outline we will be following in the presentation as I elaborate it. And I note at the outset that these comments with which I agree are drawn from Jonathan Edwards' writing and preaching, specifically from the last book I wrote about him, entitled Jonathan Edwards, A Mini Theology. Jonathan Edwards, in anybody's book, is one of the great Christian theologians of all time, and probably, as far as describing in sermonic power and with theological precision and detail, is probably the greatest Christian theologian of the future that awaits all of mankind. He's noted, of course, as the preacher of sinners in the hands of an angry God, and his sermons on hell are indeed awesome, but he probably preached more about heaven, and just as eloquently, and what is more important, as biblically. I put this little phrase, with which I agree, not that I've mentioned myself in the same breath with Edwards, but just to let you know that though we are focusing on his teaching, I do believe them myself. And I don't think there's a single sentence here which isn't true to Edwards and which also reflects my own viewpoint. Much of my own thinking having been arrived at long before I began any serious study of Jonathan Edwards. But the refinement of it and the penetration of it, owing greatly to his profound influence in his writing on my life and thought for the last 40 years. I always have the question when I deal with these two themes, which to take first, heaven or hell? And there's a tendency, of course, to take heaven first. And we usually, when we're talking about this double destiny, mention heaven and hell. The reason I've chosen to speak on hell first is because, really, we all are born into this world in hell, not in heaven. We were created in our first parents in heaven, as it were, but because of the fall, we are born dead in trespasses and sin. We are DOA, dead on arrival. As the Apostle Paul says in Ephesians, we are dead in trespasses and sin. By nature, we actually are. There are really only three basic differences between hell in this world and hell in the world to come. One of them is that in this world, God forbears to pour out his full wrath upon us. If anyone in this audience here or will ever later see the videotape is an unconverted person, let him know from the Word of God the wrath of God is now upon him. As Edwards would say, brimstone is scattered all over his life and everything he does. The only difference is that in hell it's poured out with unmitigated fury, whereas now, as Paul says in Romans 2:4, the forbearance of God from the full visitation of deserved wrath gives us an opportunity to be saved. Another difference between the hell into which we are born as fallen creatures and to hell, which we will certainly go if we die impenitent, is the fact that in this world we have diversion. We can think about something else. We can enjoy a good meal. We can like athletics. We can read books. We can have innumerable forms of pleasure, even though the wrath of God is upon us and hell awaits us at any moment. And these constitute diversions so effective that most people never think about hell. They're so preoccupied with living with the diversions in this temporary hell in which they now are. The third and perhaps the most significant difference between the hell in which everyone is born in this world and the hell to which he or she goes if he dies without faith is the fact that now is the day of salvation. The opportunity to believe and be saved is before everyone here, everyone in the world. As soon as death comes and hell takes us as its possession, no possible escape ever. We talk about maximum prisons. We try to incarcerate some of our hardest criminals in jails from which they can never escape and are never completely successful. But in this prison, there will be no escape.